He in transits on Sunday, October 8th, 9:40 a.m. in Maui, Hawaii. And so we are in gate 57 in the spleen, 57.1, and gate 51.1 in the heart. So gate 57 is the gentle, intuitive clarity, the extraordinary power of clarity. And what we have with line 1 is confusion. We have the gift of penetrating to the inner meaning that ensures timely action, the possibility of the intuition penetrating to the inner meaning. Detriment is the moon in detriment, where feelings are no substitute for clarity and can lead to indecision. The possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition, which is another way of saying you let your mind make the decision instead of your intuition. So, with that being said, new transit, new energy, but still kind of familiar flavor because, again, this is spleen heart stuff, and the last transit we were just in was also spleen heart stuff. But as I was saying before, instead of them both pointing up towards the throat, 57 is connected to the throat, but it's also connected to the G. So this is going to be an opportunity to integrate and harmonize the spleen and the heart through whatever definition you have in the G, right? And if you don't have any definition in the G, or if you're like Christine here, who has a totally open G, it's going to work in that way of, observing all of the definition from that objective point of view of the G, and that non-attaching kind of role of the open G, flavoring and contextual, again, recognizing the relationship that your 57 and your 51 have. Let me go ahead and get 51 over here too. And get a new sticky tab for 51. Okay, so back to this this polarity of them, though, is confusion. The possibility of intuition penetrating to the inner meaning, and the possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition. So again, with the spleen, we're really looking at instinctual survival, intuition, physical sensation, and confusion ultimately is honestly, it's a function of the mind, but confusion sometimes is a result of not really being able to handle the load. So one of the things that they talk about a lot in, health and wellness is the load that's on your nervous system, right? And one of the things that happens is when your nervous system is overloaded, right, you usually resort to a fight, resist the thing that's in front of you, flight, flee away from it, freeze, you can't move, or fawn, which is to coddle or to people please, right? And so when you find yourself in that emotional overload, right, one of the things that you want to do is tend to the spleen, right? Whether you're defined spleen or undefined spleen, there's a feeling of like I'm being drained, or it's like, when you stand too close to a TV and the TV is on and you hear that, like, or like an older TV, you hear that ringing. Kind of like there's a dementor that's just like sucking on your body, and your spleen is the thing that reacts, right? And whether your spleen is defined and it's reacting for you, or it's undefined and it's reacting for the group, splenic information is definitely something to become aware of, right? And then manifest the reality ultimately in which you are able to take care of your spleen. Now, one of the not self realities, and Kristen just nailed it on here, is the undefined spleen center thinking that it needs else in order to be whole or in order to be safe. And that's not necessarily true. It doesn't mean that the spleen isn't really good at assessing the health of other people, but it's like when you eat something, it's in your stomach, right? It's not in somebody else's stomach. So you have to digest it yourself. So if it's your spleen, if it's your nervous system that is being overloaded, right, the invitation is to step back. And this goes for projectors as well. Is like, you don't necessarily have to wait for someone to invite you out of an unhealthy situation. That's one of the bypasses that I see being used your inner authority can invite you out of bad situations, and especially for like splenic projectors or even emotional projectors, inviting in the awareness of like, hey, is this emotionally compatible? Hey, is this healthy for my spleen, or is this conducive for the way that my spleen works? Right, and that's the thing, is this a harmonious for my spleen, or is it detrimental? Is it deregulating my spleen? And so with this confusion, again, you're using the confusion as a sort of as a signal, something that you're tracking to recognize when, oh, okay, my awareness is being hijacked by the mind. Right. So when you feel that possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition, or you feel the intuition penetrating to the meaning, again, it's just simply an opportunity to relate with this, and especially if you have this energy online, awesome. It's going to help you relate even more. If you don't have it online, or you have an undefined spleen, really cool to watch it in other people show up. People are going to be more confused than usual. They're going to want to, penetrate a little bit deeper into the truth of things, because ultimately it's a double-edged sword, right? There's no answer. There's only the possibilities of intuition, and the spleen it's all like in the moment, right? It's all in the moment here. So the spleen is not necessarily like thinking about the future, but it is recognizing patterns of, oh, that has happened before, and these were the same signals. And so the confusion, again, let it be your key to unwinding and unlocking your relationship with it. Like, again, it's the transits are, it's so that you can discover your relationship with it, as well as watching other people's relationships with it, right? Because someone might not necessarily have a great relationship with their intuitive clarity, and they're often finding themselves more confused, whereas you might be finding yourself less confused and more intuitively guided. That could be a contrasting factor that lets you know, okay, you and this person are operating in different lanes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not means to cut anybody off. That's simply just awareness around how this person works and how you work, which differentiation is the key of human design. So anyway, let's move to gate 51, arousing shock, the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. Line 1 is reference, the advantage of previous crisis experience. Exaltation is the gift of re-examination that is the foundation of preparedness. The power of the ego, conditioned by experience. Detriment is a tendency to emotional withdrawal after shock, the weakness of the ego in the times of challenge. So again, this is the energy to be shocked, and you are going to get to see how you respond to shock, and whether it's something that forces you to retreat in the face of a challenge, or and really the only thing that can withstand shock is like practice, and same thing with fear, is like exposure to the thing that you're afraid of is the only way to rid yourself of these fears. And so with the fear gates, right, like 57 would be fear of calamity, or fear of extinction of human race, right? And integrating things, like it hooks my 34 up. So for me, my 34 is going to be online, like watering my plants, doing stuff like that, taking care of the things that keep us alive. And then this one here, right, there's going to be some kind of shock, which I kind of already feel like I know what it is. I don't know if anyone has been is plugged in. I mean, you don't necessarily need to be super plugged into world events, but there's a lot of shit going on in Israel right now, and it smells like some World War stuff. Just with the energy that's cooking, and this is the week that things are going to come out that are shocking for the public, and people are going to be taken by surprise. And for us, I would say don't be surprised, because again, this is shock, and then like, I don't want to say the hopelessness, but the fear of the future that inspires us to access our clarity and access our splenic awareness and our splenic wisdom. So anyway, there's a lot going on here. One thing about this is it talks about like the power of the ego being conditioned by experience. And this is one of the things that the ego does, right? The ego stacks up a list of achievements and it's like, oh, I've done this before, so I know I can do it again. Or I've never done that before, but I did this, this, and this, and so I know I can do it again, right? So don't be, how you say, distracted by all of the stuff going around in the world. Return to your strategy and authority. Return to finding your proper environment. Return to working on eating properly. Return to creating a space for you that has standards and boundaries for you, not necessarily for the world or what the world wants, which means, again, naturally you're going to have to relinquish some ideas about who you are. But with human design, it's not like they were really yours in the first place. Whoever you think you are is, a lot of the times it's put there and you might have fallen in love with it. But the beauty of human design, and the more I learn, I feel like the less I know. It's like there's really no way to completely know yourself. The only like true state of being that completely knows itself is one that has let go of the need to know itself and is knowing itself through the simple act of being, right? And so in these and we're having some good chats over here in the little members club for this people who have subscriptions about some really deep topics. And then and it was Soul Prospering as well, who was like, thank you guys so much for this. I'm gonna sit and meditate and reflect on this. And that inspired me to encourage and celebrate that kind of behavior, because that's exactly what needs to happen with human design. Is you can't just be in a state of learning and learning and learning. You have to learn, apply, reflect, right? Then learn some more, apply and reflect. And it's this cycle. So don't get trapped in one cycle. And then you could be trapped in the reflecting cycle. You could be trapped in the learning cycle or the implementing cycle, where you're implementing the same thing and you're not learning anything new. And so it's important to be at all three stages. Have some part, okay, I'm learning about the variables, I'm implementing my strategy and authority, and I'm reflecting on my centers, right? My center definition. And it's something to make it more manageable. And it really is like a choose your own adventure, right? Like you think about the biggest problem that you have in your life. Well, where is that issue stemming from? From your little bit of knowledge or your vast knowledge of human design, you can probably decipher, where is this issue stemming from? This big problem in my life. Is it something stemming from the emotional center? Is it something stemming from the throat center, the ajna? Which center is it stemming from? And, what definition do you have in that center that can contextualize, maybe you're drawing a lot of conclusions and information that is allowing this problem to exist from undefined gates, right? As opposed to what we ought to be doing is looking at our defined gates and seeing what our real quote unquote problems are. So anyway, this is a very existential one. I missed yesterday because, as I think I said it in the group chat, both my transits, both these past two sun transits have been locked in detriment for me. And that was something that, I looked at and I was aware of it and I wanted to get on here and do my show. But I was like, this is locked in detriment. What's the best way to respond to this for me? Am I going to try and put pressure on myself to do something that I don't necessarily have the energy to do right now? Like, am I going to taint my tea and transits by turning it into a fucking job? Nope. I did not. So I'm grateful for that. And, I'd like to imagine that some of y'all missed me yesterday. But I also like to imagine that some of y'all were feeling compersion, be like, oh, Marco's not doing tea and transit today. He must be like watering his calo patch or hanging out with his baby or sitting in the dry riverbed praying for the river to come back. River, come back, damn it. Um, but that's the key of this server. I wanted to create like a naturally pressurized environment, one that is going to apply enough pressure to evolve, but not enough pressure to conform. And I feel like this server has very many different seasons naturally, and so it's really exciting to see who sticks around through the seasons, who brand new shows up in the seasons, and again, we're really just at the beginning. And I'll continue to say this, like, the grander vision for me is to have, an MMORPG, like a video game that's like deep dive VR video game that's all based around human design. So your skills are based around human design, your skins, the environments, all of that. And it'll be like a combination between like Minecraft, Kingdom Hearts, and a bunch of like Starfield and Skyrim and stuff like that. And that's the eventual vision, because one day I'd really love to be, in maybe 2 or 3 years, instead of doing this on a camera, I can pop into here and be like, all right, guys, we're meeting at the Molten Sea for TN Transits, and y'all would just like show up with your avatars, right? And we'd just be in that world, and then we'd be able to do something where each of us, and I've been having this come through. It's not ready quite yet, but part of this TN Transit is going to turn into like like a little bit of energy healing work at the beginning of these shows. This is something I've been keep being shown in my meditations, to bring a little bit of Reiki through to ground us into our bodies as we're talking about the transits. And that's something that kind of is already here with the tea that I have, but it's not necessarily like I'm not getting you guys really to use your hands. And that was one of my specialties back in the day, was showing people how they could use their hands to ground themselves and heal themselves, and just some of those simple things. So anyway, that's going to be coming pretty soon, possibly during this transit, maybe next transit. But there is, again, there's an evolution to this all, and we, even with the transits, like, they go in sequence, they go in circles, but they're actually moving in a spiral upwards. So it might feel like the same thing over and over again, year after year, but there's always some kind of movement in a direction that we may not necessarily be aware of. So with that, be aware today of the caution or the confusion and the reference, right? Be aware of that ego that wants to prove itself. Be aware of the spleen that doesn't know what to cut away. Remember your strategy and authority. Witness the transits in other people and just see, oh, okay, that's how the confusion is showing up in that person. That's how, the gate, 57.1 is showing up in them. That's how 51.1 is showing up in them. And starts to track it, not necessarily like you're hunting a beast, but just in like you're bird watching, like you enjoy it, because it is something that we have an opportunity to do as human beings, is to observe, the subtle impact of nature on itself, as opposed to just being isolated within nature. Like, I was thinking about that, how beautiful the external authority is, right? How beautiful the mind is, because I feel like lately I've been talking like the external authority in the mind has become my new ego and the thing that I'm trying to kill. But I don't want to be that way as much anymore. And a lot of that is because of this farming work that I've been doing, figuring out how some of these plants that I don't like the cane grass and the pokey grass, are actually really good in some capacities, but you do have to tend to them in a certain way. So anyway, big love to you guys. Thanks for tuning into TN Transits. I will catch you guys tomorrow for the next edition. Welcome to this new transit. Everyone stay safe out there. Keep up with your strategy and authority. Keep posting great memes and stuff and good gifts. You know how it is. Love you guys. Peace.